Okay, I wanted to talk again about what's been done to us, right? This little series of videos I keep doing. There's a lot to say, what's been done to us, right? And one of the things I want to talk about is the food. Food today, especially in America, is really bad. It's horrible, in fact. Food is much better in Europe. It's especially in Italy. You know, I've been there many times. It's fresh, no preservatives. You know, bread is made that day. You eat it that day. They pick fruit off the trees. You eat it that day. There are things that are prepared. There's juice, in the stores and in containers, and there's prepared food that's been sitting around a little bit, but the majority of the food is fresh. And this is why people aren't, very obese. Americans are very, very obese. This has been done to us. Our food supply has been adulterated, and we're being poisoned, okay, with chemicals. So we have to realize this. Jesus himself, in the Bible, in the Gospels, what was he eating? I mean, just myself, I can think about what I've read. He was at the wedding at Cana. He drank wine. There were episodes, and bread, of course, and there were episodes when he was eating fish, and I'm sure grapes and figs and other fruits, pomegranates that would grow in that area, right? There could have been other meats, though I don't remember chicken being mentioned, or, there are goats around, but I don't remember that being mentioned. I could be wrong. But I at least know bread, fish, and that's definitely the case there, and wine. Bread back then is very different than the bread today, because the bread today the flour is very refined, and the outer coating of the wheat is gotten rid of, and that has all the vitamins and the nutrients, and then you're left with the germ, the internal part of the wheat berry, and that's mostly carbohydrates, which of course turns to sugar, and it's very, very refined into like a dust. Grinding of grain back in those days, the flour was more dense and rougher, so you would have a bread that was not as fluffy, right? And it had many more nutrients, and it was satisfying, and it didn't make you fat. Our bread makes us fat. Bagels, rolls, all sorts of desserts. It's all white flour, and it's getting us very sick. And this has been done to us. Our food supply has been adulterated, and if we don't demand better, it's just going to continue, right? A lot of illnesses could be avoided by not eating this garbage. And then, of course, processed food in general in the fast food places. This is unnatural food. Jesus would never have eaten these kind of things, or any of these people that were around him. Okay? There were no chemicals in Jesus' food or the people around him. We have a lot of chemicals. Just read labels. Read labels. And then look up on your phone what those other things are in your food and see what they do. All the dyes, that make kids hyperactive. That's just one example. And people are walking around really ill. And Americans are not a vibrant, people anymore. They're ill. They're weak, mentally and physically. This has been done to us. It started in the 50s with Wonder Bread. You have a bread that's, has no nutrition in it, and people like to do it's fluffy, it tastes good. Yeah, it does. It does. It does, and it's giving you, diabetes slowly, but it's good. Type 2 diabetes, that is, because of all this white flour that's just spiking your blood sugar constantly, And I would bet In fact, I'm sure of it. The first pizzas ever made were whole wheat. I would bet that has to be the case, because the refining process was just not as good when it first, when pizza first started. I mean, when it was first invented in Naples. But now it's down to this white flour that's put in everything, all the baked goods. You just can't eat it. You just can't eat that stuff, in my opinion. I don't eat it because I know what it does to your body. And this is why other things happen. Like if you don't get proper nutrition, your teeth start to rot. Your body, your kidneys, your liver, your lungs, your heart, it's all starved of nutrition. Bread, the wheat berries have a lot of nutrition, like brown rice, like farro and buckwheat, and all these whole grains that we can eat to get nutrition. Whereas other things, white rice doesn't have that much nutrition in it. And then the white bread, of course, has very little nutrition. That's why they have to enrich it, because it doesn't have nutrition. I've read so many accounts of people getting ill from this lack of, nutrition in the bread. The refining of the bread was one of the worst things they ever did. It's a plague on the society, in my opinion, and it's been done to us. It's weakened us physically. So it's best to get back to the right way to do it, the natural way to do it. And it's tricky when you have a society where people are running around in a hurry, and and then they have bread and they put sugar in the bread. Like, what's sugar doing in the bread? And then the sugar they're eating is heavily refined, right? If you ate sugar cane, you'd get some nutrition. You would get some nutrition if you just ate sugar cane, the plant. But refined sugar, my God, there's no nutrition, and it's very, very bad for you. Extremely bad for you. Jack LaLanne, the famous health guru, he said sugar was worse than smoking on the body. Worse, that's what he said. Where you can get natural sugar, from honey and molasses. You can get it from natural fruit if you need your sugar, which we all need. We need sugars, but get it from a natural source. Jesus ate fruit, right? He wasn't eating refined sugar. Because, I thought about, like, Jesus said, I'm the bread of life. Why would Jesus say he's the bread of life if bread itself was not this incredibly nutritious food that would sustain our bodies? And then why would he multiply fish and loaves of bread, right? And that was a meal there. You had the protein, and then you had the carbohydrate with all the minerals and the vitamins that you needed. I don't think Jesus was thinking about white flour that's going to make you constipated and ill, right? I'm the bread of life. He doesn't mean, when he says the bread of life, he doesn't mean Wonder Bread. He's talking about real bread, which can be dense and a little hard, right? I mean, they have found ancient loaves, right? Still around in Pompeii. And they're round, and if you look at them, they're not, well, of course they would have been crushed back then, but they looked like they weren't supposed to be that high. They looked like they were fully cooked. The ones that have been found. You can look it up, the ones that have been found. But it was a wheat bread. So think about this. Think about your food. The drinks. You're not meant to drink soda, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all these things that are, loaded with sugar, and they're acidic. I mean, I know I've used Coca-Cola to strip rust off of tools. Think about that, because it'll do it. And if you put it on your car and leave it there, it's going to damage your paint job. So it's acidic. I wonder what it's doing in your stomach and your intestine and your kidneys, your poor kidneys. So that's another thing, the soda. And then frozen food, just look at the preservatives in that stuff, right? So what's been done to us is a healthy food supply, like they still have in Europe, has been traded for a poisoned, denatured, minerally barren, nutritionally barren food supply. And this is why people are sick. One of the reasons, but it's a huge reason. It's a major reason. Not to mention the water, which is not supposed to have 3 billion chemicals in it. Fluoride, chlorine, all this other stuff. That's another issue. Right? And then people back then, they did drink water. They drank wine. But they weren't walking around smashed. They mixed it with water. Because the water sometimes was not as good as you'd think. They had cisterns, they had wells where the water was better. But people did drink wine and put into water and consumed it that way. So anyway, I just wanted you to think about this, because this is another thing that's been done to us, is the poisoning of the food supply. And then the chemicals sprayed on the food. That's a whole other issue. I believe the future of America and other countries is the destiny of the people is that they will have to grow a percentage of their own food to just stay healthy. And people are beginning to see this. I guaranteed they're seeing it. Because if we just continue to buy food at Walmart with all the chemicals, you're going to see how sick you really could get, how overweight you could get, how dull your mind's going to be, how sluggish you're going to be. And then people eat too much. They eat too much because they're still hungry, because they're hungry because the food has no nutrition, so they're not satisfied. So they have to keep eating, thinking it'll satisfy them, and it's not going to. And then there's an addiction thing going on. But if you eat and you're still hungry because there's no nutrition in the food, so your body's craving the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients, the trace minerals, and it can't get it. So it just makes you keep eating, and you're eating more white flour, and your sugar's spiking, and you're gaining weight because your body's storing the sugars, and you're never using it up because you can't walk around. And then as you get heavier, you have less inclination to walk around. It's a horrible, vicious cycle. But it starts with what you put in your mouth, and that means no processed food, minimal, almost nothing, whole food, natural food, the way God made it, to the best of your ability. And that includes bread. And if you have to grind your own grain, which is really not that hard, because I do it, it's I learned how to do it recently. It's really not that hard. You can buy an electric one, and then it's a grain mill, and then I bought a bread machine. You make your own bread. It's delicious. And it doesn't take that long, and it's really not that hard. It's simple. And you got some really awesome bread that's going to satisfy you, because people love bread. And there's nothing wrong with eating it if it's a whole bread. But if it's Wonder Bread and all the other breads that are colored to look like wheat bread, but it's really not wheat bread, it's white bread colored to look like wheat bread, you're just going to get ill. There's very few breads that are decent. Ezekiel bread is one that's very good. Alvarado Street's another one that I know of. There could be others, but those two I know for sure. And they're frozen because they have no preservatives. Go on the shelf and look at the bread you see there. It's got mold. Definitely got mold because there's condensation in there with the temperature changes, from being delivered and all this. And then watch how it doesn't rot because it's got all these preservatives. So anyway, that's about bread. And then, of course, think about your chicken and all the rest, and try to get ones that are as natural as possible. And make sure it's real meat, because they're trying to sneak in some fake meat. All right, enough of me babbling on. Take care now.